All right, Coach. Coach, why don't we start by you introducing yourself and kind of giving people a little bit of background about yourself?
Cool. Yeah. Name's Richard Griffith. I'm the offensive coordinator at Hamburg High School in Hamburg, Arkansas. And I went to high school in Northeast Arkansas, at Greene County Tech High School. Um, it's not a place that's a traditional football, power or anything like that. Big basketball school, baseball's done well, all that. So, we were able to do some stuff in high school there that hadn't really been done before. It was pretty cool. Won the first playoff game in school history, all that kind of stuff. Got the opportunity to play for Coach Freeze and Coach Malzahn at Arkansas State in college, and then later got to work for Coach Anderson there. Graduated and had an opportunity to go down to Ruston, Louisiana, work for Coach Skip Holtz down there for the 2018 season, and wound up down here in Hamburg. So
Great, Coach. Let's kind of start you because you've done some GA thingings. You want to kind of describe what your duties as a GA was, kind of what you kind of learned from that experience.
right, so um, got to work as undergrad assistant while I was at Arkansas State, still working on my degree after playing was over, and then quality control at Louisiana Tech, which is a fancy way of saying you're a GA but you're not. Um, so I didn't have to do the school part, which was nice. But you find out that you do whatever. Time at Arkansas State, we'd shoot out of practice early to literally go fill trash barrels up with ice, so that way the next day they would have something to ice in after practice. You drive to the airport, pick up recruits. It's, hey, you're at Sunday lunch with your family, but you got to go get up and help this player because they need help with XYZ. It's just being ready at the drop of a hat to do any and everything. That's kind of the umbrella of it all. And then the specific, like, day-to-day kind of stuff, you get to, you sit in on the meetings. You're a part of all of that kind of stuff, like fly on the wall. They obviously don't care about your opinion. But which is good because, the whole open mouth, closed ears thing. So when you're not the one having to come up with answers for anything, then you can just kind of absorb everything. So it's a great scenario to learn in. But you're responsible for all the data entry and all the film breakdown. So, by the end of the week, what your opponent's going to do just as well as they do because you probably watched it more. So a lot of the tedious, long hours, that kind of work. Basically, if it has to do with the computer, it goes to the young guy. We've had some coaches that literally don't know how to turn their computer on. So, that's kind of where we come in, just literally any and everything. Um, yeah, just stuff like that.
All right. Kind of continue with the GA stuff. Offensively, like what did you take away from your? We'll start with this with your time with Coach Anderson and his staff at Arkansas. What did you take away from there that you liked that you've kind of transitioned with you?
Right. So I worked with the safeties coach and worked on the defensive side of the ball.
Okay.
But being on the defensive side, you work with the scout O and all that kind of stuff. So you actually get to learn every offense against the team that you're playing against. And the same thing when you're offensive GA or QC or student assistant or whatever, you really get to learn that other side of defense. So, us getting to see how Anderson operated against us every day and the things that gave us problems, especially in like spring ball and stuff like that, where you're scheming against yourself. He did a lot of stuff that made our defensive coordinator, Joe Cawthon, who is fantastic, made him kind of concerned, and it was funny because I'd go and have a conversation, with some of the offensive coaches, just trying to pick their brain because I knew I wanted to end up on the offensive side. And I ask, like the questions that everybody has, like, what do you run against this, and what do you like against that, and how do you prepare against all these other schemes that people run? And the answer I literally got was, we don't care what they do. We're just going to do what we do and dictate to them. And that has a lot to do with, tempo and playing fast and all that, and forcing a defense to stay base. So that was kind of the big takeaway there. And then the flip side of it, being in the room with Coach Coffin, looking at some of the stuff that we did, there were times, like I said, especially during spring ball, where it's us versus us, where Coach Coffin's looking at a play that they run on offense and saying that they're running 3 different plays. You flip over to the offensive side of the hall, and they said, no, it's the same play out of a different formation. So, like, just how presentation on offense can completely change how a defense views a play. It was pretty interesting to see firsthand. And, on one end of the hall, they're sitting there laughing about how he's calling it different plays. And on the other end of the hall, he's upset because, said we were only going to run one play, and then there's 3 of them, but it's not 3, just that kind of back and forth of how it's the whole who has the marker last and how you look at things, that, as opposed to, maybe what the other person sees them as. So that kind of stuff was pretty neat to be a part of and to see.
Okay, and then what did you take schematically from your time at Louisiana Tech?
Screen game was really good there. That's one of my favorite things that we did. We did a really good job of packaging it all together, all that. We didn't necessarily do a ton of stuff that, like, would blow you away as far as, like, oh, this is the most creative thing I've ever seen. But we did a lot of stuff that I really liked. And a lot of it was more in, like, how we taught it than necessarily, like I said, like, what it is. It's not some kind of, like, crazy, like Coach Riley at Oklahoma and Coach Frost in Nebraska. It's not like, it's not going to break the internet or anything. But we did a lot of stuff where we double called plays, so the quarterback always had options. Some of the concepts I really liked, and it was like, so we kind of took a spin on slot fade, and changed what the outside receiver does. So instead of running a hitch, he's got an option route. And so, it's little tweaks like that where, like, everybody in the country runs slot fade, but, they're running it with the hitch outside and the fade over the top. And we've got, with our option route there, is he could run a slant, he could run a smoke. And it's all based off of leverage. So it's the quarterback can't lose when he's throwing that concept and stuff like that. So, like I said, it was more the details and specific things like that we did that really impressed me.
Okay. From your time at the college level, what do you think that it could be practice oriented or scheme oriented that is implemented there that most high school coaches do not realize that they should probably implement, whether it be how they structure the practices, whether it be scheme wise, what do you think it would be an easy takeaway that a lot of coaches don't use?
That's a tough one. In my transition down this year, there's been a ton of stuff where I've felt like we could use those things, and people that have been, at my high school specifically, and in high school in general, they're kind of leery about it. But I think there's a lot of good scheme stuff that you can take away, but like I said, I think it's kind of my whole takeaway from Tech in general is it's in the details. So it's the specific coaching points, like we had a tag on dart that, helped change blocks up. So that way, if we had a crappy, technique by the defensive end for the front side tackle, then, the tackles would switch jobs, and it's like little details like that I think, if they trickled down, it would help a lot more instead of just the like, oh, I saw, LSU run power, so we're going to run power too. If they got out like what the coaching points were and all that kind of stuff on the stuff that they did that made them really, really good at power, I think that's the kind of stuff that, coaches ought to be looking for instead of just trying to copy and paste the plays in general. It's the kind of the why and the how behind the play. I think the biggest takeaway from the practice structure is it's always on. So there's no, all right, last play, and then you run 6 more plays. No, the clock says we're going on to the next thing. And so it kind of forces you to be more efficient in your time. There's not really a whole lot of I'm going to stand around and look like we're doing something and give you guys a break. It's all planned out well in advance. And I think that has to do with they don't have to go to class in the morning, so they can sit there and kind of talk it all out. So high school coaches have to find a way to be more creative, and more efficient in kind of scheduling practice. Because if you're scrambling around right before practice starts to figure out when you're going to do stuff, it's going to feel like it when you get out on the field. If you've got the whole week planned or a set structure, set out to where this is how Mondays roll, this is how Tuesdays roll, this is how Wednesdays roll, and you at the very least talk about it, day before, before everybody leaves, hey, this is what we're doing tomorrow, while the stuff is fresh on your mind. I think that's the kind of stuff that would help. We did a lot of stuff that was, we kind of had to go home and then we would talk about it the next day before practice. I think by that time, the stuff that you really feel about is kind of faded off a little bit. I think it's better to address stuff when it's fresh on your mind. So I know that's stuff that we could do better personally, and I'm sure it's not an exclusive issue for people too. It's you go home and think on it, and you get on and watch a little Tiger King or whatever you're binging, and and you forget that our screen period sucked today. So then you come in the next day and you're like, oh yeah, we're good. So just kind of addressing things immediately, I think, is the big takeaway that would make practice and stuff like that more efficient. And like I said, just kind of always keeping that same structure. It's an impressive thing to see, and it takes a ton of people to do. And I think that's probably one reason that it doesn't get done a lot. But
yeah. Coach, we'll kind of transition more to high school stuff now. Where do I want to go with it? Let's start when you guys are scouting and breaking down opponents. What do you look for in scouting and breaking down opponent film at the high school level?
Right. So for me, like I said, I try, and I had that conversation at Arkansas State early on. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter what they do. You just do you and try and force them. So that's the way I try and approach it. I, for the sake of my O-line, I try and understand, if we're playing a 4-down team, where the 3 technique is, just so that way they can get some better angles on stuff. But to me, I don't care what front it is, So the thing about breaking down to me is, so we practice against a good look during the week. It's not like, oh, well, this whole section of the playbook has to go out the window because they run an overfront and these are only underplays. So it's that kind of stuff for me. Seeing, down here, we got a lot of people that load up the box. They got looks that you're like, man, we should be able to throw all over the yard. But it's a lot more it's obviously a lot more difficult because the talent level is completely different. So, I'm looking at, like, if we got this look at Tech, we're throwing for 1,000 yards in a game. I'm at Hamburg, and it's just different. So, and just like I said, it's really trying to get an idea of what they do to give a good look to the kids, so that way they're not really surprised. Like I said, it doesn't necessarily affect what I want to do. I mean, my whole philosophy is to pick a handful of things that are good against everything, and like that's your offense, and obviously not everything is absolutely ideal, but I like full field read concepts when you throw the ball. That way, you don't have to worry about having a beater on each side and things like that. Big fan of inside zone. Doesn't matter what front, everybody's moving, stuff like that. Having answers when you have gap game power, and we did a lot of counter tray, and that stuff. I mean, there's not really a front that you look at it and go, well, we can't run those plays against that. So, like I said, there's nobody that really scares us out of doing something schematically. Now, there were some times where we saw some players on the other side of the field like, well, we got to do something different because that dude's an animal. But, but as far as, getting on the board and everybody's equal as an X and an O, like I said, it's more about just trying to find a good look for the kids. So that way, when they get out on the field on Fridays, it's familiar.
Okay. When you guys install, how many formations, plays, pass concepts, run concepts do you try to put in a day? Like, what is your ideal install schedule look like?
My ideal, and it's not something that I've really had the opportunity to dive completely into yet, but my ideal would definitely be the air raid way. Have the 3-day install, and all the base is in 3 days, and then you rinse, repeat, all that good stuff later on. And I think that would probably help make us more efficient, because it's super easy to get in the weeds and go, well, we need this play and we need that play and this play and that play. So what we kind of did this year is we had kind of like a big three, and we pounded that all summer, and then slowly as we got into fall camp, every couple of days sprinkled in a little bit more. But yeah, by the end of the year, we had a ton of stuff in, and it was just like, all that stuff that we had worked all summer, like, where did that go? So it's about trying to find the balance of, like, yeah, this play might be really awesome against this team, but is it worth adding a whole new play in, even though as a coach you might not look at it as a whole new play? These kids are looking at it as a whole new play, and I mean, you got kids like, coach, we never even run this play. Why are we adding that play in? And out of the mouth of babes, right? They're probably right. So it's just a matter of trying to be a little bit more efficient that way. But like I said, we just kind of, like I said, had our base through the summer, and then just kind of added a little bit on each week starting in fall camp.
Okay. Now when you install your plays, do you that day one when you install that play, do you show a variety of defensive fronts, or do you just stick with one and then go against like a different front the next day?
So during the summer, it was us against us, and we were making a defensive scheme change. So before I got there in the spring, and then continue on the summer ball, we were running. We had switched from 4 down to 3 down, so we were running against our 3 down stuff because we were trying to hammer it in for our kids on the other side. As we got more comfortable with that through the year and all that, we started adding some like multi-front days, and we call like Mondays, for instance. During the season, it didn't matter necessarily what we were going to see on Friday. We just kind of went through the gambit and threw a bunch of different fronts, because you never know. I mean, in high school, you can come out and they have a 6 front, and you've never seen them, run a forefront before, and you're like, where do these other people come from? So just like I said, doing little stuff like that, tried to help keep us ready for whatever might have came up. And like I said, after our defense kind of got more comfortable, we were able to do more of that stuff as the season went on. So
now let's kind of move on to some quarterback development. What are your like everyday drills for your quarterbacks?
So it's interesting because we're in an interesting situation here. So the things that I wanted to be able to do, couldn't always do it. And I mean, that's life, and modify and adjust. So there were days where I had to take quarterback over to the running backs because we needed, I needed to have personally my hands on with the running backs that day. Or, I needed to have my hands on with the receiver, so we go routes on there. So there were some things that, weren't able to do the way that, you expect them to, right? But we tried to steal some time during special teams. Like, I didn't necessarily have anything specific to do during special teams. So I'd take them and throw. And the big thing for me was we had a first-year starter. He's a smaller kid. He works super hard, and he's a yes sir, no sir guy. And so, that kind of stuff you can work with. But the big thing is we were working mechanics with him a lot. It was mechanics, and then while we're throwing, I'm just kind of drilling into his head, the don't throw deep late, can't go broke taking a profit, and just all those kind of things that he needed to hear over and over and over because he'd been a scout team quarterback, for the, past couple of years. And there were times in games where, I'm looking at it going, yeah, that's scout team, that's scout team right there, because it's we'll throw the ball no matter what, and just trying to break that mentality and reinforce that every day. Big thing that we worked on this year, and I thought it was more specific to him, was just how to move around in the pocket. He's not the fastest footed kid. He's not a slow kid, and it's not like he's got slow feet, but it just seemed like it took him forever to start. So we did, I just call it the Romo drill, because, he's always doing all the spinning out and all that kind of stuff. But just moving around the pocket, getting him to, find escapes, looking for the B gap escape to be able to step up into stuff like that. I felt like that was an area that we really needed to emphasize. So when I got a chance, that's what we did. And, throwing on the move, because he had to break the pocket a lot, and, we liked our play action and sprint out game too. So just getting him more comfortable with his feet on the move was a big thing. And then, I kind of changed up the footwork a little bit when I got here. So it was working on the drops, working on feet, moving around. So that was really kind of what I hammered home this year. And then, like I said, just trying to fix him mechanically to where he can get the most out of his body. Because he was a bit of a slasher, and it was all arm, and so trying to get more rotation, all that kind of stuff in, and let him use everything that he had. So that was kind of the approach that I took this year.
Okay. What do you think is an underdeveloped part, or doesn't get developed as much as it should for a high school quarterback?
I think of a lot of it is just having him look at the play like you do. One of the best things that I was able to do, and going forward, going to do more of it, and hope I can find examples like this. But I had some cut ups that I'd actually traded for. It was some Alabama cut ups, and it was them throwing Y cross. And so I was actually able to sit him down and show all the different, the better camera angles than what we have every day of, what he was looking at, and show him the whole field open up and all that. And so we were able to talk through, and he was able to say what the read should have been, all that kind of stuff. And, we don't have anything nearly as nice as, being able to get all the way up here and see the whole field and see the whole end zone and see everybody move. Like, it's Alabama versus Hamburg. So it is what it is that way. So I think, being able to show a higher level of execution and have him sit down and be able to see that like better quality view of what we're trying to talk about and have it actually move around instead of it being stagnant on the board. I think that was really good, and it got him on board. So that way, that play, I know for a fact we could go, right now and talk through. Some of the others, it seems a little bit more up in the air because we didn't necessarily get to do all that kind of stuff. But for him to be able to sit down and go, eyes on the safety, we're doing this, we're doing that, and just work his way through because we had that opportunity there, I think was a really good thing. So anytime where you and here on that kind of same page, because y'all can see it the same way, is definitely the best way that you can do it.
Okay. And then kind of to wrap this up, Coach, do you have any final closing thoughts, comments on offense, on being a GA, on installing anything in that section, or on all three?
I think the couple of things as far as the going the GA type route, I had to take student loans out to pay rent, so you got to be prepared to take a couple of L's and make some sacrifices there. But it's a super great opportunity. One of the hard things to do once you go from there, down is you don't have access to the resources that you did before. So you've got to adjust the things that you learn, so taking everyday drills for quarterbacks. When I was at La Tech, Tim Rattay was there and had all kinds of great drills. And so, I've got, drill cut-ups and all that kind of stuff that we did. And I'm going through and trying to find what can I do that Coach Rattay did to help my quarterback. And he's got 3 managers and 4 backups and, scout receiver that's not doing anything, or the star receiver that's not doing anything during special teams, or whoever. And I'm looking at me and my quarterback going, what can I do with just 2 of us? And so that's kind of the biggest challenge, for somebody that's up and wanting to come down, or that's down and wants to go up to come back down, is you're going to learn a ton of great stuff, but you got to get creative to be able to implement those things. And that's kind of, to, I guess, put a bow on it. That's why I think the details trickling down are the most important thing. Everybody wants the flashy play or the flashy drill or whatever, but if you can learn the why behind it, I think that's really the most important thing that you need to try and get out of, is why you do something, or how you get this guy to perform at the highest level. So